Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today, I wanted to do something a little bit different. A couple of weeks ago, I gave you the first impression on the Sig k320, and this is back then I said, hey, this is a pretty well-balanced folding knife that's really primed to hold a pretty good spot in terms of a highly effective, highly popular EDC. I would kind of, this pretty naturally fits in with some really good options like the Benchmade Griptilian, like the Ritter Hogue, like the Freak, like the Mannix. And so I wanted to take a couple of these, just these two. We could have had a couple more in this video, but I was like, you know what, I think it's overkill. So I focused in on these two because this kind of holds the place for the Griptilian and the Ritter Hogue. This kind of holds the place for the Spyderco and its excellent EDC reputation. You could put a Para 2 here, you could put a couple of other things. And then here we have the Sig K320, a different offering from Hogue, I guess, built by Hogue for Sig Sauer. And so I wanted to do a quick rundown and comparison between these two and just sort of see how the Hogue stacks up, right? Is it kind of, out of its league with these other two EDC classics, or is it so close that, hey, this represents an extremely compelling option? All right, so let's start off with size and weight. The Freak is the biggest of these knives. It's 8 7/16 overall, so just a hair under 8.5 inches there. 3 5/8 on the blade, 4 7/8 when closed. All right, 3 3/4 inches of grip area and 4.3 ounces. Moving over to the Mannix. Now there is a Mannix lightweight and there's a Mannix standard, which are going to weigh different amounts than this. This being the Mannix lockback. All right, it is 8 inches overall, 8 3/8 on the blade, 8 11/16 when closed. Did I say 8? I meant 4 11/16 when closed. If I can seem to close it on camera. 3 5/8 grip area here, plus a choil, okay? And again, the weight on this is just like the Freak, 4.3 ounces. Finally, the K320 is a little over 8 inches, like not even a 16th. 3 7/16 on the blade, so that's just a hair under 3.5 inches. 4 9/16 when closed, so just a little over 4.5 inches there. Now, these numbers are a little bit different. So the grip area, sort of in that conventional grip, I'll see if I can kind of, there you go, just between here and here is only 3 1/4 inches. However, this flat area is quite comfortable if you needed to put your finger back here. My fingers fit in here. You also have that choil, again, to choke up, okay? So those things need to be kind of taken into account for the grip area. And this weighs in at 4 ounces. So we have some really close numbers there. And to be honest, like 0.3 ounces, I can't give a better grade to any one of these. All right, I tend to like a little more blade, a little more cutting edge, so that makes me lean a bit toward the Freak. However, to do a fair comparison, I can't, I guess I can say, yeah, the Freak is a little bit bigger and that's going to be more appealing for some people, but not for everyone. All right. So we'll leave it at that. In terms of size, weight, and how these carry in pocket, that is a solid tie. Like there's really none of these that stand out as head and shoulders above the rest. Moving over to the blade, let's talk about that. We'll start with the Freak first of all, since it's sort of the odd man out with that M4 steel, which you can see right there. All right, M4 steel, 24 thousandths behind the edge, 116 thousandths blade stock. The Mannix has the thickest blade stock at 145 thousandths. It is 23 thousandths behind the edge. Okay, so slices quite well also. Both of these, in fact, cut pretty nicely. And then finally, we've got the K320. Here we have S30V. There's also a Tanto version available of this. So, we've got drop point blades all represented here, but if you wanted a Tanto, then you'd kind of be stuck going with the Hogue. That's The only one that has some options. Also, there is a stonewash blade instead of the black coated. I haven't seen any at too many retailers though, but I did see a picture once or twice, so I know they're out there. All right. Similar dimensions though, 23 thousandths behind the edge and 125 thousandths stock. So it kind of lands, I guess, in between these two in terms of stock thickness, but the edge geometry on these is all quite similar. And in fact, when you go to do some cutting, that really does bear itself out. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab a piece of cardboard and do a little bit of cutting for you so you can see that. All right, so I know you won't be able to see this, obviously. I mean, feel this, but you can sort of see, and I can kind of tell you what the feedback is like. As I'm cutting through that, there's a little bit of a resistance, what you're used to feeling with any flat ground blade, right? Very, very similar feel as I knock the tripod over. And finally, moving over to the Freak. Again, very similar. I mean, it's not exactly, the Freak is probably just a little bit slicier than the others. I don't know what happened to my tripod. It was standing here perfectly this whole time until right now. Anyway, in terms of cutting, they are so close that, again, it's really not fair to say one of these is a better cutter than the rest. Now, the M4 steel, of course, I am a fan of. However, the Freak, one, you're paying more for that. If you get the standard version, then it's going to be S30V. By the way, let me just say that the Freak is, I don't know, it's a little bit of a miss, and I kind of feel the same way about the Griptilian, right? Both the Freak and the Griptilian should just be done in G10 all the time. Like, there was no reason to make them in that cheap feeling plastic, and even the Freak with the rubbery coating. I know this is an aside, it's not part of this video, but I just had to throw it out there that it really annoys me when Benchmade makes these knives and makes stupid choices like that when there's an obviously better way to do it and they just choose not to. Anyway, having gotten that out of the way, let's move on to the action on these. So we're all pretty familiar with the axis lock and the Omega springs. On the Mannix, of course, you can do the ball lock, which is a coil spring, which is a better system. This one, of course, has the back lock. And then finally, we have Hogue's version of the axis lock. I think they call it the Able lock. So, and it works very much like any Benchmade you have ever tried. In fact, it's as nice or nicer than any Benchmade that I've ever handled as well. So action on these, all of them are pretty good. The only thing I would say about the Hogue is the location of this hole is a little bit awkward. Like, every once in a while, certainly I can't, well, I get it that time, of course, on camera, but I have a hard time spidey flicking this because I feel like the hole needs to be a little bit lower, like you see where my finger lands, rather than up here. And if I do move up here, then I messed with the lock being able to move. All right, obviously you're not spidey flicking this one anyway. And I don't know, I think I haven't tried to spidey flick the Freak in a long time, but yeah, it is pretty easily done. So the action on them is, it's good. The only, in terms of comfort and ergonomics, these are all about the same. I would have liked a slightly larger opening here to just make it a little more intuitive, so I didn't have to kind of put as much thought behind it as I do, as you can see, me trying to mess around with it there on camera for a second. Now, let's touch on handle comfort. All of these, the handle construction and comfort is quite good. The Freak is, well documented as one of the best EDC knives out there. We've got 3D contoured G10. We have a partial liner, which is really, really nice and does cut some of the weight out of that. The Mannix is not 3D contoured, but it is so well molded to a human hand. This may be the most comfortable Spyderco, especially in the lockback version, because it's a little bit thicker. And then finally, the Hogue. The Hogue is very good. It really does feel like it was meant to be in a hand. Your thumb sort of naturally rests in this little swale at the back. If you move up to the choil, they've given you a little sort of landing strip there for your thumb. Really, really nice. Ergonomics on all of these are very, very good. Now, that does create a bit of, I guess I will complain about this being FRN. It would have been nice to see this done in G10 like the others. Although I must say that this FRN doesn't feel as cheap as, if you've ever had a Spyderco Endura, or if you've had a Benchmade Griptilian, The plastic handles feel plasticky. This doesn't feel as inconsequential or as unsatisfying, I guess, as some of those knives do. It definitely feels a little bit better. Finally, I guess while we're talking about the handle, we can touch on the clip. There's not a lot to say here. There is one little touch that's kind of interesting. Everyone's pretty comfortable with the hourglass clip on Spyderco's. I have the bent over parkerized clip on the Freak, and then here we have a bent over clip with these little ridges that actually catch your finger pretty well for extracting this from pocket. Now, I don't have any problem getting any of these out of my pocket. Maybe when they were doing R&D, some people complained, and so they added that. I'm not sure. Maybe they thought of it before that ever started. Either way, it is a nice touch, but is it nice enough to say, like, all knives should have it? I don't really think so. There are a lot, and I mean a lot, of great everyday carry folding knives out there. If I could only keep one of these, I would probably go with the Benchmade Super Freak. I do like that knife a lot, but more for, not for utility reasons. Okay, I think S30V is great steel. I think these are both comfortable knives. I like the look and feel of the Freak. I like the layered G10. I like the red liners. I like the overall. I find this to be a little more of an attractive knife in terms of just straight utility. And if I was gonna, I was blindfolded or only could compare these based on utility, then these are so close to equal, guys. They really, really are. And so these are really excellent EDC folders. And that's really saying something. The fact that these two, which are, two absolute winners in terms of, sorry guys, I don't know why this keeps falling. It sat there for hours before this. Back to what I was saying, these are two of the best EDC folding knives that you can possibly get. And the fact that the SIG can even be compared to them is quite an accomplishment, right? I don't find it quite as attractive as the other two, but that's really a pretty small thing. And the other thing I have to say here is the price point on this is pretty darn comfortable. I think these are like $120, which is not cheap, but it's certainly not 190 or 140. These aren't available anymore, but they were 140 retail when they were widely available. So I think all of that bodes very, very well for the SIG K320. I've got to give Hogue a lot of credit. Whoever was responsible for the design, whether it was the people at Hogue or SIG or whether it was a combined effort, doesn't really matter. This is a really well done folding knife. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.